Sorry,
so having a really good look at our conflict of interest register with the board, I think the board members should be able to work within the DisCo as long as they declare it with the board to say that this is what I'm doing. It's outside of CEDA, so I don't see that there should be an issue with that. And I think that the board would need to address that at a board meeting. But obviously, if the majority of board members feel that that's the way it should be, I personally, from an operations perspective, don't see an issue with that at all. So, but a very good question, Aaron. And I think I think that was always one of the things that sat in the back of my mind, that it was a really good opportunity for board members to be able to find paid work with the skill set that they clearly have.
Yeah.
But also, I think then frees up people that want to be on the board, who also want to earn money, rather than saying, well, I'm not going to join CEDA's board because I can't get paid for the work I do. So that really stops a lot of.
It will also help people who don't have a lot of work now and they're on the board get work.
Yeah, exactly. So it will help people who are on the board to get work. Great. Thanks, Aaron. That's a really important part. I think that really helps support CEDA as well. So.
Okey-doke. Here's our registered name, by the way. DisCo Hunter. We now
thank you, Douglas, for last week's question about have we got in a registered the name. I worked with our bookkeeper who had gone in to register the name, and he had basically registered the name but put it on hold because we could not use the term cooperative in the name until it became formed as a cooperative. Then you have to apply to use that name, which is quite a process, which means we couldn't register the name legally. So Natalie and I last Friday went in and we scrummaged around with a couple of good suggestions, and this is what we came up with as the actual official name for DisCo Hunter, and that will be our new what do we call that?
Website domain.
Yeah, our domain name. Thank you. She's on thingy. the thingy. IT, you might understand. I love it. I think it's a really good name. And anybody who says, hang on, what happens if we get bigger than the Hunter? What happens if DisCo gets so big that it's no longer Hunter based? I've got one word for you, PHP. Broken Hill Proprietary has not been in Broken Hill since 1932. It's the biggest mining company in the world. So, it doesn't matter. In fact, it actually is really good because it talks to DisCo's roots, being here in the Hunter. And even if we move beyond that, it's not going to hurt it at all. Tara. Is there a .com?
there is a domain name, but it's not live yet. It'll be out all
There's no, we don't need .com anymore.
No, you're old school, man. This is a whole
Oh, man. That feel, Jared.
Right. Are you still filming? This is me gloating. Anybody else have any tech questions for me?
I was going to say that.
Yeah, what are you doing over back there?
Okay. Okie doke.
So I'm going to hand you back to Dave. Any other questions around the why now and the actual setup of the DisCo? I would just once again remind everybody that we are in a process of the DisCo setting up. It will take some time. There is definitely some work that needs to be done administratively to actually get our rules in place. We would need to set up a steering group of peers who are interested in being in the DisCo and seen as suitably skilled to come into that as the beginning of the DisCo. And also, once we get the rules, once we then register the name DisCo, it then becomes live as a DisCo, which does not mean we can't do the work. It just means it's not registered as a cooperative yet. But it can still do it in the interim. So it doesn't mean we just have to sit and wait. We can continue, we can promote it, we can still call it DisCo, we can still do all of those things while we're building it. So, and it really is going to be one of those things that will always be building, always changing, much like CEDA. It's not going to be static. It will be driven by its members, and those members will be drawn from CEDA's best and finest, which is fantastic because what a great place to draw your membership from. And I think it's a lot of the questions that people have, I don't have answers for, because if I had the answers to it, then it wouldn't be a cooperative. It would just be something I came up with. Now, at this point, it may be something I came up with, but what happens to it will be completely member driven. Okay, so that to me is the really important part of a cooperative. It's owned by the members. It is absolute, its direction, and some of the questions that will be asked about what happens in the future will be owned by that cooperative. A lot of the questions, and we'll get to the questions shortly, but that have already been asked, there's a lot of stuff that can be answered in the short term, and some things will be much longer term answers that will need people to actually create that answer. So, thank you, Dave. I'll hand you over to Dave. Thank you.
I think I'm throwing back to you pretty quickly, that's all right. I guess we just also like to reiterate, this isn't replacing CEDA in any way, shape or form. It's just sort of sitting outside, so not a replacement. The work that CEDA does and will continue to do is still vital in building that peer movement and being, building communities. The stuff that DisCo will be doing won't be that sort of stuff. It's much more corporate than that. So people working in the DisCo, we're using the phrasing, calling people called lived experience inclusion consultants. Right? So that's very much a kind of a business jargon terminology around that inclusion consultants, and that lived experience is the kind of the cherry on top of that. So, Kat, do you want to speak to the next one? So this is just a quote that we've put up there from Andrew. So we exist to create inclusion for peers to act as change agents, leading work that matters. So what we're talking about here is is engaging with organisations that want to do better when it comes to disability, right? They want to employ more people with disability. They want to support people with disability more effectively. So it's making the change and building a communities and society the way we want them to be.
It should be.
Yeah. Okay, pathways. I might hand it back to you, Andrew, to talk about the pathways aspect. One more, yeah, slide for us next. Okay, so right, this is the pipeline. I can do this, or you can do it, Andrew. It's up to you.
You can read it better than me.
Sure. Okay, so you're probably wondering, okay, so we've got the DisCo, we've got CEDA. How do these interact? How they connect with one another? So we've got a bit of a pipeline approach to how this happens. So first up, you have to be a full member of CEDA, right? So a full member of CEDA means a person with a lived experience living in the Hunter who has paid their membership fee, which is $1, right? So you're a member of CEDA. All right, so you'll then successfully complete all CEDA's internal training programs. So that's intro to peer support, peer facilitation, team mentoring, etc. So that level of training is providing like a bedrock of shared knowledge and shared understanding about how CEDA operates in the days in CEDA, right? So once we're all on the sort of same page, then we can then build on top of that. So that's giving every CEDA member the same shared knowledge. Right, so you've done that. So you've become a member, you've successfully completed all the training. Right, now you have to adhere to the values of CEDA in our code of conduct, right, which is being, thanks, which is being developed. It has been developed, sorry. We're just sort of putting finishing touches on it now.
All done.
All done, yep. And that'll be distributed out to all our membership as well about what they are. And then the last point is demonstrates an active involvement in CEDA activities or engaged in at least one peer group. Right, so that's that peer peer support stuff, or it's that paying it forward aspect of CDAH. Going to CDAH activities, going to events, it's, you know, showing up for peers, it's being engaged in the regular day-to-day stuff that CDAH does. Because what we don't want to have happen is someone who's just on a path to be working in the DisCo, right? Actually don't give a shit about CDAH or the values, all they want to do is get paid, okay? And now what happens then if that person, you know, gets into the DisCo, it undermines everybody else working in the DisCo, right? Because they're not bringing the same level of commitment to their peers, to the community that we're trying to build. And it's very much very much me focused way of looking at the world. What we want to do is build and foster that sense of a disability community, right? Where we really talk about, like, you know, all boats rising, right? Everyone lifting up together. So yeah, being an active member is crucially important in that space. And also, and everyone has spoken about this a lot too, there's something interesting that happens when you're, you know, engaging with your peers and you know, going to events and hanging out, is that you start to, like, your understanding around, like, I'm going to use the words disability politics, right? It's kind of reinforced and amplified. Whereas if you are just a solid, I'll hear that. The great example is me, okay? So prior to my involvement in CDAH, my understanding around disability was me in a wheelchair, that's it, right? I'm disabled, that's what disability is. And so I was incredibly focused on my own stuff, right? This is what I don't need a disability community. I can get out there and do this stuff on my own. I actually don't even want to refer to my disability. I just want to be one of the guys, right? That was absolutely my mentality until I came to CDAH. And then joining up with CDAH and seeing the diversity around disability and the strength in that diversity absolutely fundamentally changed what I believe in and how I see myself, which is part of a broader disability community that is all pushing in one direction, trying to change the world we live in today. Be more accessible, be more inclusive, to allow people with disability to be that full and active citizenship that we talked about earlier in that circle diagram. So if you are not being a part of CDAH and actively engaged, you're losing that connection to that community. Right, so how can you possibly go into an organisation talking about this is what the disability community needs if you're not a part of it? So it's critical that people maintain an active engagement at CDAH.
Industry currency.
Industry currency, as Andrew just said, exactly right. Okay, cool, next slide. Sorry, yep.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. There's 2 points I'd add to that. One is
That industry currency, our currency is lived experience, and our currency is peer work and that sort of collective thinking that exactly what Dave's explained, that is critical to being able to do this work well. Because if it's just a personal journey, if it's just an individual journey, then we can't control the outcome. And this goes back to Jared's question, that lovely short question you asked earlier about, you know, what happens if we're picking up the wrong work? You know, if we start doing any sort of work because I go, well, yeah, well, yeah, about peers, because geez, I want to get paid. Look how much money they're paying. I like that work, right? If we don't keep checking ourselves, if we don't keep checking in our values, and the only way we can really successfully keep checking in on our values is to stay current and stay grounded within the community that we represent. So that is critical to the ongoing success of the DisCo without becoming a juggernaut that loses weight. The other thing that I would also add too is that while we're looking at developing this, I've just forgot what the point was I was going to make. Oh yes, and it's the all boats rising that Dave just mentioned. All means all. I really want to re-emphasise this point. The DisCo is not just for half a dozen hot shots with education and, you know, people that have that really high level
skill in training or facilitation. It is lived experience that makes you the expert in this space. And because it's all means all, if we're not selling a product that says it's all people with disability and it's only represented by the few that look like they're going to fit nicely in a corporate space, then we're missing the mark. Because if people are not listening to all voices of disability, which is why every person who is involved in CDAH has the same opportunities to gain something from being involved in the DisCo, I think this is really important. So to me, please don't think that it's just going to be that half a dozen people. And there are definitely some areas that will require a particular skill set. Julie, for example, Julie and Sarah, and I think it was Georgia, participated in paid work in doing web design. So, and that was specifically for a peer group. So there is different work, it's not all the same work. Obviously working with Jenny's place, Dave or I aren't going to get a Guernsey there. There's absolutely no way we're going to be in that space. So there are lots of different opportunities that will arise for different peers. And so having that really broad and flexible group of people is one of the biggest assets we have. And to sit there and go, oh no, we'll just fix these 5 or 6 people because they're the ones that have got the skills we need. If there are people whose skill is their lived experience, the other layer of this that we haven't spoken to much is the outward training. So there's that being involved in CDAH activities and being involved in CDAH peer groups, very, very critical. But the other part of it is being involved in any additional training that we will set up so that you learn how to do facilitation for external organisations, how to answer hard questions when they get asked, how to deal with dickheads. You know, because you will, you know, when somebody asks you a question that is really rude and really offensive, how do I manage that in an educative way rather than telling them, you know, eat worms and put 20 cents down the side of the car on your way out? You've really got to make sure you maintain the relationship, because if you lose that relationship, you lose the opportunity for learning and for change. So, you know, often people will ask you really, really inappropriate questions. That's an opportunity. So learning how to see that opportunity and to get the best out of it, that's a skill, that takes time. So, you know, that's part of the training. Some of the internal training workshops, you know, that will also be dictated by the work we do. If we look at a job and say, well, hang on, we did that last time, it didn't work as well as it could. What are the skills we need to learn to do that better? So we look for people that can support us to get those extra skills. So the bottom line is your lived experience is the biggest skill you bring. Other skills will come, and you know, that's what the DisCo will provide to give people additional skills. Jared, you had another question? One question. One piece of one piece question. No moving parts.
One good question, one stupid question. Speaking today, I imagine there would be some structured, maybe disability pride training around it. And there would need to be quite broad, because also going into disability culture as well, because the different culture is very different to disability culture. So I would imagine there would need to be some sort of structured training, like we have for the 3 peer training components, which will probably look at having a culture training as well.
Thanks, Jared. That wasn't a stupid question before either, by the way. Any question that makes it look like I know something about tech is a good question.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. Cool. Next slide, thanks, Karen. Okie dokie, so here's our, a bit of a diagram on the pathway here. So we've got, the pathway extends with your entering CEDA, right? So you can just, when I say just, if you just want to be a part of CEDA, all you want to do is, go to the catch-up crew and go to a peer group, totally fine. Still there, still options absolutely there. Because, fundamentally, it's still important for us to do that stuff. So if a peer just wants to have that sort of social interaction with maybe a little bit of training here and there, absolutely still welcome to do that. But you might have entered and go, okay, I've been at CEDA for a little while, been hearing about this DisCo thing. What's this all about? You can go and do that training that we mentioned earlier, right? That peer facilitation training, peer mentoring, and your training peer support, right? So that's that prepping you ready to be part of the DisCo. And you may have done that training and you go, no, I still don't want to do it. Done the training, that was really great. I just don't think the DisCo is part of it for that. There's no reason that you have to then progress into the DisCo. But you've done the training, say, yep, training was great. I'm really keen to get involved in the DisCo. Then you apply to be part of the DisCo. And we say apply because just because you've done the training, it's not an automatic rubber stamp that you can then be a part of the DisCo, right? Because it's still important to the DisCo that those values are still all right for the organisation, that you are engaged with CEDA, at that peer level, and that you're being still a contributing member of the organisation. So just because you've done the training does not give you a rubber stamp to go into the DisCo. But if you do then, nominate to be part of the DisCo and you're selected, then you can be, operating in the DisCo as well as being continuing on as a member of CEDA. So does that pathway, is that clear? Does people understand that? Any questions around it? I know Justine's got a question, which is great. So we're throwing So
I think Dave, just underpinning what you're saying about applying to be in the DisCo, that's where that adherence to CEDA's values and code of conduct is really important. Because in that code of conduct is being accountable, being courteous, and all the other things that go into being part of the code of conduct. If you've done the training, but you're not turning up to stuff, you're not reliable, it's, there's been lots of times when things have been asked for you and it hasn't happened. We have to be really careful, and this is a really important point for everybody, all of us, self included, that unfortunately for people with disability to put your neck out and say, we are going into organisations to see cultural change and we don't turn up, or we're unprofessional, or we're abrupt and rude, or it doesn't go well, that's a real bad outcome. It's a bad outcome for me as an individual. It's a bad outcome for people who are trying to change and see change in. And it's a really bad outcome for other people with disability who are then judged on what people see. And so that's a really important, and it's possibly an unfair thing because we all have bad days. Doesn't matter who we are and where we are. But if it is reflected in the work you do, then it's, using an ugly corporate term, it's brand damage. Because the brand is people with disability, and if it adds damage to it, any marginalised group who is seen as other than, and people with disability are always seen as other or less than, if you behave less than, people will say, oh, see, what was the point in that? And that damages what we're trying to do. So this isn't about gatekeeping and saying you can, you can't. This is about, this stuff's important. There's a bigger picture here. This is way bigger than the individual doing it. It's much, much bigger than even the DisCo. It is every person with a disability we represent when we go in to do this work. That's a big responsibility, but it sadly exists. And I think we always have to bring that into the work that we do.
So we've got two questions. I think we'll have a crack at these. Only because the first one is relating to that pathway. Who determines after training if you can be employed in the DisCo?
Me? No. Another, oh, that was you, wasn't it, Justin?
Anonymous cards, Andrew.
Okay, who determines if you can be? I think, once again, I think that is going to be something in the short term. It's about selecting people that have pre-existing skills and expertise in doing this work as we support other people to develop skills. So it depends on what the work is as to who is a good fit for it. As the DisCo forms and we get that membership group, I think there's going to need to be a process around that to make it fair and equitable. So yeah, great question, because that's always going to be one of those things. And when somebody says, and a level of honesty as well, when somebody says, well, I've been in the DisCo this length of time and I'm not getting any work. Well, I think that group of people need to have a good answer for why that is happening. And it might be that the answer is, well, look, you know, we offered you work twice and it didn't happen for this reason and that reason. Two people had to go in and fix it after you did that work. We need to sort of have that discussion. We probably should have had the discussion earlier, but so there really needs to be a genuine HR process around this about making sure that it's a really robust and fair process. Any questions, Justine?
So one,
Do you have your hand up again?
No, it's all good.
no, so one more, Andrew. So this one is around the DisCo board. Is there one? If so, how does that work within a cooperative?
Not quite a board as such. It essentially works like a board. It is an executive, so there would be people given executive roles, much the same as the executive of the board, where you've got your treasurer, president, vice president, and secretary. You would have those sort of functions within there, but it is actually each member of the cooperative has a vote, but there has to be a process for bringing everything together and making sure that that's all done. So that's where the rules of the cooperative, much the same as the rules for constitution, really set it out to make sure it's all very clear and transparent. Yeah, so there would essentially be. Now, whether there needs to be an executive officer involved or there's a paid position to support that process, that would come down the track. And that will also depend on the size of the cooperative and how it functions and what it sees as its long-term relationship with CDAH. So.
Cool. Next slide.
Have we covered this?
This, people happy with that?
We've talked about this, but
Work within DisCo, yeah, happy with that?
next.
Yep.
Yeah,
No,
I just
hang
have
on.
one more. I just have one more add-on question, of course. So, well, when it starts up, we're gonna have like, packages, I guess, that's not the right wording, but, of things that we offer, like, how is it gonna kind of, I guess, start so that we get out there and people know where they can fit. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yes, we will. Short answer is we will have a suite of offerings that CDAH of that the DisCo does. That could grow or diminish depending on the future of the DisCo as well. So you know, if we think, oh no, we're really good at that stuff, or that stuff's not really working, that can change. But in the initial stages, yeah, there'll be a suite of options for sure.
Yeah, thanks, Mel. And also, I think there's, as with any sort of consultancy work, and I'm sure that we're picking up on this, that there's always that level of contextualisation. If you work with a different organisation, that early conversation, what is it that you need? How much money have you got? What levels of change are you looking to see? And what do you expect from us? And really negotiating what that might look like. So we could have that suite of resources. And I use the example, I used to do a lot of remote teaching. And I could go into any community and have plan A, B, C, and a whole heap of fishing gear just in case something doesn't work. And it's a similar approach because every organisation is different. And I think if we try to one size fits all and say, well, that's our product, that's what we do, I think we get stale very quickly. So it really is about saying, what do you need? And that's when whoever the person is, and at the moment it's me or Dave or whoever, that goes in and says, okay, what do you want to do? Now we're doing some negotiation with, I use Life Without Barriers again as an example. The negotiation we've come up with has to fit in with a structure that they're thinking of, or their existing structure, or where they see the problem.
Yeah.
So we would then cobble together particular resources if there's something new or something different, or say, hey, this is a package we've used in the past, or if they've got no idea what they need, which is often the case, we can say, well, this is what we've used, it's tried and proven, why don't we parachute that in and see how it goes? We'll meet with your executive as you should always have those catch-ups mid-term, et cetera, to say, is it working? Because it's not just selling a product here, it's about seeing change. So if we're not seeing change, what do we need to do to ramp it up, step back, maybe even bring somebody else in and take somebody out where it's not working. So it's all about the outcome, not the individual.
Yeah,
So, yeah, so there's a lot of work around that, and you get better and better at it as you go.
yeah.
And I guess it's probably worthwhile adding to that, we don't have any interest in doing tokenistic work either, right? So in some of the conversations that we've had with LWB, very much around, we're not just going to train frontline staff, because we know the churn rate on support workers is high, so it's just, within 6 months we'll have to train an entire new cohort. It's about how do you make that long-lasting, all of organisation cultural change. So that's part of that as well. Yeah. 5 steps to DisCo. So yeah, this is just a reiteration on the previous slide, just with a cool little graphic there. Thank you. Thanks, Nat. Looks great. So becoming a CEDA member, training in peer work and peers facilitation and mentoring, getting involved within CEDA, DisCo readiness training, which Andrew's sort of referred to, and Gary sort of highlighted around that kind of disability pride aspect. They may well play a part in that. And then applying to be a member, a DisCo team member, and stay involved in CEDA. So we're looking at getting that graphic sort of design on posters and
T-shirts
and stuff like that too. So yeah, thanks, Cal. You're right.
Next time after this.
I guess with, sorry, Bryce.
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
I don't know exactly where this fits in the, I think it fits networking, hopefully. Speaking of lived experience, obviously, well, almost all of us here have lived experience with disability, but we also have, like, we all are more than that. So my question is, will DisCo be intersectional, and how will it be intersectional?
Short answer is it has to be.
Yeah.
Right. We've had this conversation. Andrew and I have had this conversation, and we've pretty much come to the realization that the last organisation to employ people with disability will be in the disability sector.
So, David, what was the question?
Oh, my apologies, Katrina. So the question was, will the work that the DisCo does, will it be intersectional? In terms of, will it just be working in the disability space, right? And the answer is no, it has to work within mainstream organisations, right? It has to be intersectional, right? So as I said, and not even a joke, disability organisations will probably be the last organisations to identify and realise that they need disability inclusion training. Right? Because they know it. They've done it for 20 years.
Yeah.
You know,
That'll be the last to pay for it.
yeah, and they'll be the last to pay for it, exactly right. Right. So it is absolutely imperative that this work is done within the mainstream, quote unquote, mainstream organisations, right? So that's everything you can think of. It's supermarkets, airlines, banks, insurance companies, councils, absolutely, councils, university, yeah, has to be, and it has to look like that. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So thanks for the question.
Great question.
Yep. Okay, so to your point, Mel, here's some of the potential offerings that we could do. So design and delivery of disability action plans, practice leadership support of disability inclusion, capability uplift programs, peer mentoring, coaching, and storytelling for culture change.
Can you explain what some of those mean, Dave?
Sure.
Especially
So-
capability uplift.
Yeah, so capability uplift programs. I get that's going in and talking to organisations about how they can best support, and I mean this in a broader sense of the word, support people with disability in their organisation, right? So how, if you're wanting to employ a person with disability, what does that look like? What do you actually have to do to make that a success? You can't just go, hey, we've employed someone and, well, we didn't give them any support, they didn't do the job, they kind of didn't work, and so that's kind of on them, right? It's not about that, it's about what can we do to support organisations to, again, support people with disability in the workplace. So that's that kind of stuff. It could be, how do we increase the way an organisation supports their disability customers, right? Like, how do you do that better? I mean, we've all had horrendous experiences with airlines. How could they do disability better at an airline? There's so much scope for work there. So it's that kind of stuff.
They got the,
Sorry.
they got the sound filters.
Sorry.
I don't know anyone heard, they got the sunflower, thing, make their sunflower.
Manuals.
Then or something, they meant to identify you or
Oh,
something.
that's for in disability, yeah, it's in
Yeah.
disability.
Yeah. For airline or that.
Yeah, no, so, but by and large, I think we've all had pretty horrendous experiences. Yeah, so that's that capability uplift. Peer mentoring and coaching, that's kind of self-explanatory, I think. And storytelling and culture change. So it's using our lived experience, our stories, or what we've gone through in our lives, informing, using those stories to inform that change that organisations need to make to be more inclusive. That all kind of, any questions around those sort of offerings at this point? Okay, cool. Rightio, we might all skip that one because we'll kind of go a bit more in depth in the back end of it. Thanks, Kat. So we're going to have a break now. I'm just going to do 10 minutes. Yep. Yeah, 5 minute break. Grab a bite to eat. There's some refreshment stuff over there on the table behind Shailene. Yep, and we'll see you back at 2:35. That'd be all.
If you get stuck, just put up your hand and I'll come around and help you.
So we're not recording now, because we're at class.
We would like to take a look back at your board that you developed. And what are the 3 must-dos, so the non-negotiables? We must do this at CEDA to launch DisCo. So we would be curious for you to put a dot and some agreement at your table. What are the must-do priorities on your board? So if we're going to filter this board down and brainstorming ideas, what are the 3 big ideas or 3 big things that we must do here at CEDA? We cannot get away without doing these things.
Yeah, I was like,
Yes, Shelley.
do you mean like
The things underneath. Yes, Douglas.
Is that for everybody to put 3 dots?
Yes, as a group, you can put 3 dots each.
Or individually, or as a group?
We really after from each table, what are the 3 must-dos that you want? So as a group. Sorry.
Way to go with my gun.
No shooting, please, Douglas.
Any of the ideas from any part of the board? Because obviously, as a team, we would love to do everything all at once, but we're curious to learn from you what are the 3 top things that need to be done.
Jared chose to keep Justine.
I'm glad there was a consensus around that. I think we support, does everyone support that decision?
I support it, mate. I support that decision.
Sharon, is that dot going to stick with all that greasing there?
Okay, has everyone got their voted 3 dots down?
For each category.
No, all up across the board, the whole board. 3 ideas across the whole board. I would love to give you more votes, but we're just going to go around the room now and say, what are your top 3 on each table? That's not to say the other things are not important, but we're just curious to know what you as a group think your top 3 are.
That or Justin?
I hope you all have my name on there. Hang on, I don't want to leave Cedar.
Okay, while you're waiting for the other people to complete their voting, if you could nominate a spokesperson from each table, and we'll start to pass the microphone around. Julie, you happy to do that? Thanks, Julie. Kate is valued.
So what is like?
Excuse me, mate.
It's the sugar.
Kate is valued.
Yes.
Create a board of people with disability. Create is cultural of encouragement, feedback, and accountability.
Say that again, so I can capture it.
Cultural feedback and accountability.
Cultural of encouragement, feedback, and accountability.
Yes.
Great, that's unreal.
I was hoping accountability would pop in. And feedback.
Next group.
So under keep is we want to keep peer connection. We want to create an awareness of peers' worth, including their values and their culture. And we want to avoid or stop issues relating to unfairness.
Relating to what, sorry, Kate?
Issues relating to unfairness.
Oh, fairness. Okay, don't you know with it? Don't you know with us?
We want to keep peers and the values of CEDA, so I'm sneaking in 2. That's not really that. We want to tailor programs for individuals, so that's really under adapt, so that the people who are delivering the program have the material adapted for their the way they work and the way they need to deliver it, as well as obviously we're delivering it, we're adapting it to each service provider, each organisation that we go to. And
Oh, that's the create clear.
create clear products, training packages where members can understand how they can contribute.
It's so good.
And can I add one more?
Yeah.
No, 2 more. No, I'm going to add 2 more to avoid and stop. I've got the microphone in the last room. Avoiding burnout and gossip.
Or gossip about who's burnt out.
That too.
Thanks, Katrina.
Excellent.
Wow, that's some great work, guys. applause for yourselves, that's unreal, thank you.
Great, then we'll collect those boards off everybody. I don't know, one whole group. So we'll collect those boards off everybody and we'll get them typed up and circulated so everyone can get a copy of the outputs from each table. So that then just moves us, next slide, Kat. Done the sticky dots. So just to finalise our conversation today, we thought we would talk to you just to reinforce when will it happen and what are the timeline events that we're working towards. Next slide, please. So as you can see at the start of the road, we're here today at the planning cafes and we've done 2 of them. So congratulations for getting through the internal launch of DisCo to the members.
And thanks for your interest and attendance too.
Yeah.
It's been fantastic, such good outputs. So next week, we've got the Hunter Disability Expo, and as you've seen the banner in the foyer when you've come in today, we've got a lot of merchandise now with CDAH and DisCo printed on it, ready to distribute and start to have some preliminary conversations at the Expo next week. Just on the Expo, Katrina's done really well to put a roster together. Everyone that's on the roster has been listed with the Expo for entry. So we look forward to working with you next week at the Expo. Anything on the Expo, Andrew, before we? No, all good?
No.
Okay, so that's May.
Thinking about something else.
Oh, right. So our big launch is in September. So that's the big event on the horizon when we'll go more publicly out to industry, out to community, to try and increase our level of engagement, participation, and hopefully hot money tickets coming in the door. So that's so we've got a little bit of time between May and September to start to keep the design work going that you've all been contributing to, have some more planning cafes to help add value towards that, and start to build our systems and strengthen our capabilities. So getting ready for DisCo.
Thanks, Nat. The thing I was thinking about was a couple of things all at once, which is how we try to. One of the things that really I think is important is very much around within that starting to look at putting together a working group to start doing some of the lifting. So it's not just us few sort of going, all right, we've got this. Now that we're at this point, of getting all this really important information together, it'll be really good to start seeing, and I think we might do this as an expression of interest for people who are interested in actually coming on board to being part of the steering group, and we'll see what the makeup of that looks like. I think that would be really good to have to start now getting more people involved in the process, because the more people involved in it, the more it's peer-led, the more it grows. So it's got to grow from beyond this core of people starting, and it now has to be, we've done the incubatory stuff, now it's the broader getting it to happen. The other thing I really wanted to point out too is, and I think it was you, Dave, come up with a point, and I really like the idea, with the funding we've got for the 2 years to get things up and running, we have some measurable outcomes that we're expected to achieve. It would be really good, and this little rollout road, I think, gives us a bit of an idea here, of really making it clear internally here what those measurable things are over that 2 year period, and getting them up on a wall here so that we know what we're achieving and know how we're measuring towards that. So it really becomes a whole of organisation approach, and we're all part of that. Is that a hand up, Justine?
When you finish.
I just finished.
I was sitting here thinking, I think it's about 8 years ago, Dave, that CDAH first started. And I don't know, are you potentially the only person in this room that was part of that core group?
Yeah.
And I went, 8 years ago, CDAH was kind of founded with a small group of people with a vision for what it looked like. Here we are today, that you guys as peers are that core group going, look where CDAH's headed now. This is groundbreaking freaking stuff that's happening. CDAH was groundbreaking. CDAH was groundbreaking as a disability peer-led organisation, and now you guys have a co-op on the way that's never been done before. And I feel so privileged as an ally to be here watching that.
So smart. Thanks, Josh.
Great, I think that's, yeah, I think that was heartfelt and that come from the heart, so.
We're even ringing in about that, yeah.
So as we wrap up the first series of planning cafes today, we're also keen to capture and understand so the room as a whole can stand tall and proud and speak it up, write it out and make it matter, is what was most important to you. When it comes to DisCo, whether it comes to CDAH, what is actually most important to you as we wrap up the conversation today? So we might start on the other side of the room, Jane, if you would.
That it's driven by the peers. That's absolutely most important. Everything else is secondary.
It just seems natural to me. It's a bit, I think, it's cool.
Most important, what you said, you know, feel it. Yeah, and keeping in mind the values and why we're doing this to make systemic change for better.
Yeah, peer-led and also strengths-based.
That we're actually doing the thing. We're actually doing the thing. And on that, Andrew, if we are gonna have a roadmap in the office, can we have a little car where we move it to each location so we can see our progress moving forward?
That'd be a little record.
Yes.
Yeah, cars are inaccessible if you can't see.
Alicia speaking. Just capitalizing on this opportunity and that it's strength-based.
Right. Yeah.
Kelly, I guess I just would like it to be known how unique this is.
Say that again.
How unique this is and new. I guess off the back of your groundbreaking comment.
I was lucky enough to work in homelessness space, to do advocacy work for a very, very long time. I have never seen anything come through that's this tangible and this achievable. So hats off to you guys, because the industry needs a lot of change.
Thank you.
We're still here, and I think it is more empowered by all the peers.
Thanks, Julie.
But no one's left behind.
Because this is being recorded, I just want to talk a little bit about history. Like, this is the second workshop, and there was 3 people here last week that were part of the original 30 odd people that started this. On our website, there is a document that actually lists all the people. The ones that spring to mind is Kate Ware, Stephen Allen and Christy, our president. I know Christy would have loved to be here, but she's very, very busy in a range of things that she does. So because it's been recorded, I just add to Justine's well wishes before. And I don't know whether I've actually missed anybody, but I really encourage people to actually have a look at that historical document.
Thanks, Doug. That's great.
Okay, yeah, on the way, along the lines of Justine and Doug, we are thinking about my beautiful friend Kate and all of the people that set up CDAH and their work and how wonderful their work was. when we talk about money and value was undervalued for the opportunity that we have now. But I also keep in mind the people that we're doing it for. The people in our communities that don't have a voice, that don't get listened to, that don't have anyone who, unfortunately, anyone that loves them. And it's those people who, when you talk about values and wives, that's one of my wives, is the people that we owe this club to.
This is Ray speaking. I think the most important thing that was came out is the connection that I had, and because I mentioned about the hot money thing, but that hot money, that was just the thing. But like, because usually when you first met people, you would ask them, what do you believe in, right? And what do you believe in is what do you work to make a living and to whatnot. And money is, as cliche as it is just so crucial and essential. And it's just like, yeah, it's like the way that we can make it happen to make it our income a lot more sustainable. It's just not, yeah, like you wouldn't say you eat, like what do you believe in? You eat and whatnot, right? And it's just that it feels like DisCo would be able to keep us all living as well as the whole community as well. So yeah, and yeah, I'm just impressive. Yeah.
I think everyone said it about being time, but even people there start being part of the community. I think that the same come down, big things of small things that big things off on small things. Like when you guys first started to think that the year before it's gonna be like this.
No, Aaron, I didn't think it was much larger than I'd ever thought it'd be. So yeah, it's great. Thanks.
I think it's really important to be able to keep the change going. And I think from everything I've heard today, I think that's something everyone in this room is invested in. And that's a really important starting point as I see it.
Thanks, Tom.
I'm not 100% sure on the question of what was most important, but for me, what's most exciting about all this is being a change maker and being able to go out there and make a difference. And yeah, and what the flow on effect of that. It's like Brandon Putnam was one of the images we used in training. We're going to start somewhere and we'll just grow and grow.
Yeah, I think the concept of change maker is important, and to pick up on Douglas and Justine, stand on the shoulders of the giants that have come before you. And we can't let go of the legacy and the values and the principles that have come before us, but also it's that, and I was fortunate enough to go and see Obama speak live this month. And he talked about it's about taking the baton and the relay race and keep moving it forward. So what I've noticed in the room today is there is a willingness, a wisdom, and a let's get this shit done to make that change and carry that baton forward. So kudos to you all for standing tall on the shoulders of giants to get this done.
Wow, what a note to finish on. That's it, guys. That's us. Thank you so much for your attendance on these last two workshops. Your input is invaluable. As Andrew's reiterated multiple times, this doesn't work unless there's buy-in from you guys, the peers. In fact, if you're asking these hard questions, you're really, I'm just looking at this board behind us, and it just blows my mind. It really does. I'm just so incredibly impressed with the amount of thoughtfulness and leadership in this room. It's never ceases to amaze me. So getting tingles and chills and all that sort of stuff. So it's amazing. So congratulations, thanks again. And I think that's all from us. So thanks, Nat. Thank you so much for all your work and input today in the last couple of weeks. So a lot of the workshop design was Nat, so we were just filling in some of the content. So thank you very much for that. Andrew, thanks for your leadership on this. This has been 18 months in gestation, essentially, to get to this point. A lot of sleepless nights and hurried phone calls and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's really starting to happen, and with us in this room and those that have attended the previous workshop, this is going to work.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You guys need a song, a powerful theme song.
DisCo song.
Well, we won't have to contract that out with someone.
That's a powerful peace song that goes along with your advertising.
Yeah, great. No, seriously, thanks guys, it's fantastic. And we're done. Thank you.
Yeah.